yeah, people are here, people are coming in. Thank you all for joining this webinar about the role of brand in B2B SaaS growth. And I'll start this now. So the first part is, before we start and get to the topic, there's some housekeeping we should go through. So the webinar will be recorded, and you'll be able to watch it afterward as well. We are good marketers, and we'll send everyone a link to the recording to your email as well. And it will be on our website, advancedb2b.com/webinars. If you have questions throughout this webinar, you can use the chat or this QA box, which is there on the side in the Zoom panel. And yeah, we'll try to answer them in the end. And then, of course, the most important part of this whole thing is that we both hope that you enjoy this webinar, have fun, and yeah, get something out of it. But before we get to the topic, one more thing. I thought we could briefly introduce ourselves. So my name is Wiebke. I'm a growth marketing strategist at Advanced B2B, where I work with our international customers. And I help them define growth bottlenecks and how to overcome them to, well, grow their business. And I'm joined by Heikki. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me. So my name is Heikki, and I just recently worked at Lyyti, but soon I will start as the CMO at Zephyr, which is an AI-based contract management software. So pretty excited about the future. So my background is in inbound marketing, marketing automation, graphic design, brand development, and whatnot. But these days, everything is more or less SaaS marketing. So that's my passion these days.
Same for me. Quick one on the agenda as well. So we'll first go through what this elusive thing called brand actually is, what role it plays for B2B SaaS growth and why it matters, and have some few examples. And we also talk with Heikki about some experiences from, some examples from his experiences in the past. And then we will have a short Q&A session. But let's look at this brand thing, this mythical thing, and maybe also start with a bold statement. Because brand is actually the single most important aspect of your company strategy, and it belongs in the CEO universe. I'm going to leave it at that, and we'll get back to why that is. But before we do, we look back to the previous times, and back in the days, marketing was all about brand marketing, and nowadays it has changed a little bit. In a way, it's not about, Don Draper at all anymore. And what we mean today by brand building has changed from back in the days. Or has it though? Because maybe it hasn't changed so much. Little spoiler alert there. But there is something interesting that happens between, the days of Sterling, Draper, and Cooper. This is Mad Men. In case you don't know this show, watch it. It's great. But marketing, and especially brand marketing, got itself into a bit of a bind because it was suffering from a bad case of branding problem, which is like somewhat ironic in a way. But this comes from marketing campaigns also that were really far away from the business impact. And one good example for this is for example, the Pepsi logo guide that was released, allegedly $1 million kind of document, and it starts nice. It's like the golden ratio, talks about that, but once you read further, you all of a sudden read about sun rotation and magnetic fields, and this is maybe a sign that brand has moved a little bit too far from the business. So in other words, don't stretch your brand all the way to the sun and moon, but kind of keep your feet on the ground where your business is. And this is actually also what we mean when we say that brand belongs to the CEO universe. It doesn't mean the CEO should pick the colors or the brand name. Sometimes that can go somewhat wrong as well. But it means that the CEO is the one who defines the common company story and the reputation, like the vision. And he must be the one responsible for for really designing those strategic lines in which to tell the company story. And this is, if we look at growth marketing, which is what a lot of people are talking about right now, and also we do, of course, or at least I do in my daily job. But growth marketing is following a formula where you have brands and marketing operations, and that equals growth. It's about combining like short-term tactics and long-term strategic approach, which are both closely tied to your brand, and they go together. And this is like the two key elements of business growth in a way, that you can leverage those in the right way. So for example, brand, all too often companies think brand is like something like visuals or something like this. But it's about positioning, having a strong vision, knowing your ideal customers and delivering the right product for them. And you know your brand is on the right track when you have right fit customers coming in and they understand the value you're providing for them. And they don't maybe haggle you on the price, and you get, or they have an easier time getting buy-in in their company as well. And then marketing operations on the other side is the experiment-driven agile part. I think nobody or most people have moved away from annual clocks and those kind of things in marketing, or hopefully, but it's much more growth mindset driven, learning driven. You're trying things out, you're getting learnings, and you move on from there to learn new things and apply those. And those both things are tied to your brand, and those together create the sustainable business growth. And this is actually also then the question, like, why does brand matter for B2B SaaS? It's actually quite interesting, and that unites all types of SaaS companies. Is it like product-led companies or enterprise type companies? Often when you have a free trial, you think the product sells itself. When you're sales-led, like an enterprise company, you think, okay, sales needs to convey the value of the product to sell itself or the business. And in between that, the importance of brand is like grossly forgotten. And this is actually, I think we should maybe consider BLG, brand-led growth in some way, because it's never like one function of your company that creates growth. It's not sales, it's not product, it's not marketing maybe either, but it is, you know, the brand that is the sum of its parts. And this is looking a little bit at the sum of its parts. I mentioned earlier the story. The story is the DNA of the brand. It's the lore of the company that keeps it together. And it impacts so many different parts of the business: culture, value props, everything like this, vision and mission. Do you have any thoughts on that, Heikki?
Yeah, I'm glad that you actually put that sort of matrix or image over there, because that sort of perfectly summarizes what the brand is all about. And one of the biggest misconceptions is that people think that brand is just about the visual identity, but that is obvious, and that is what your customers will probably see in the beginning. But the actual brand experience goes through like all the customer touch points, starting from your purpose, your why, your company culture, and so on. So it's very holistic viewpoint of the whole your business.
Yeah, and it's also super important to remember that the brand transcends all company functions. And I was talking with a former colleague the other day who's in customer support, and I can't remember the name of the brand anymore, but typically the way you answer in customer support, the way you have your release notes, like if you look at Slack, the way they have the release notes, that is a reflection of their brand, or in other words, they are like on brand. And this is why it belongs to the CEO. If it would just be a marketing thing, it can't transcend the whole company. And this is also another misconception, because a lot of companies actually think that brand matters in B2C. That's a B2C thing. I've heard that actually quite many times in my life that, yeah, it's a B2C thing. But it is equally important for B2B as well. I mean, just think of some really great B2B and brands, Oribi being one of them, for example. But also Klaus app, I think that's a customer service one as well. Just maybe also because I love cats, but they have cats everywhere and in a really great way connected to their business, not just random cats. Yeah, but do you have any idea where this misconception is coming from, Heikki?
I don't know where is it coming from. Maybe from the history, but like no matter where in which industry you are in, brand is your business, and people might think that it's only for the B2C companies where like you need emotions for buying products, and people think that in the B2B side, the buying behavior is purely rational, and that is of course nonsense, as we all know. So my advice is that just don't benchmark large B2C companies in brand marketing, because for those companies, the product and the logo placement seasoned with some sort of mass marketing, that's basically everything. So you can do that if you have unlimited marketing budget and you want to waste that all. But I would call that as a Russian roulette or something. But today, when you're doing marketing done that right, it can be very, very cost effective. So my sort of key learnings here are that communicate your brand story, not just expose your logo. Do it in full funnel. So brand marketing is not only in the awareness stage of the buying process. And thirdly, go hyper targeted, whether you're running ads or doing something in social media, and engage your core audience in that. But if we want to stick with the brand narrative, there's a really cool example that I've been following quite many years. We can now change the slide. There's a screenshot of an old video from Zendesk. That's basically a customer service platform, and their mission is to build relationships between companies and their customers. So they created a bunch of videos about an old married couple that wasn't about to go through hard times, but they make it through. So, and another video is about a young couple who fall in love in the customer service situation. I just love their sort of tone of voice and their way to convey their like core mission. I think it's just a perfect example of a very nice brand narrative. Even though since 2014, when these videos were created, they refreshed their visual identity for quite many times, I guess. But this is still a very good example of the brand narrative. It really works.
And two kind of disclaimers on this one. One is also, we have mentioned customer support now quite a lot. There are also other B2B apps outside of the customer service space, which we'll look at in a little bit. And then the second thing is, if you have an unlimited marketing budget, call me, because I want to know more about you and your company then. That time is sadly over. But let's look at a few examples of how a brand issue can really manifest itself. So one is, for example, that you have a great blog, you have really great content and whatnot. Nobody reads it. So that's sad. Then you might have ideal customers, but they don't know who you are. So there's another question of how you know that they are your ideal customers, but that's a whole separate topic. And then thirdly, this is especially true for what's true for everyone, but often manifests itself in enterprise SaaS, but it is difficult to sell your service or solution. All of those things point to the fact that you have a brand problem. And this is actually something that concerns a lot of companies. And it's the one thing, as I said also earlier, that really unites all companies, B2B SaaS companies, no matter if they are low touch, no touch sales, product-led, sales-led, marketing-led, it can unite all of them. That, for example, in a product-led company, you're like, yeah, the product sells itself. And then you have the trial figured out, and you're looking at onboarding and everything, but it doesn't, then you have trials coming in, you maybe have also a lot of trials coming in, but then they don't stay. They either leave or they never become your customers. And this can have several reasons that are related to brand. One, there is no brand recognition. You don't mean anything to them. That's a sad realization maybe about life, but sometimes we as a company don't mean so much to other people as it might seem from our inside-in perspective. But also it could mean that there is somewhere a misalignment between what you promise, what your message is, and your position to what your product delivers. That again is a brand issue. Because then no matter what you do, because often like in product-led companies, you will look at onboarding. Like you think of, having user onboarding in product messages and whatnot. But if your brand doesn't work out, if the position and messaging isn't aligned, you can have as many in-product messages as you want if there is like the brand promise is not answered in the product. And that often also happens when you have maybe marketing going one way, reaching for the stars, and then you have the reality. There needs to be a balance, of course. And in sales-led companies, that often shows because it's really hard to even like open a sales discussion. It's hard to negotiate prices. You deal with, I don't know, price negotiations, contract negotiations. You have to get buy-in from like 100 stakeholders and the janitor to like on the company side that's buying from you to buy your product. And all of that kind of shows that there is an issue in the brand somewhere, because typically a brand should make it easier to sell. And also, this is, as I just said, reflected in pricing. And I mean, I could just look at my iPhone, but then someone would probably say, yeah, but that's a B2C product. And it is. But let's look at a B2B company where maybe the pricing and the brand go hand in hand. And this is maybe a good example. So he got Stevie Wonder from Dreamforce 2015, I believe. During the keynote, all of a sudden, Stevie Wonder popped out and played music. And this was not everything. I mean, Stevie Wonder was just the beginning. There was like a festival type of thing. Foo Fighters were there, Killers, I think also other bands, but I was really busy being like excited about Dave Grohl because I'm a child of the 90s. And yeah, so I don't think the CEO of Salesforce or Steve Benioff does those things because he feels like it, maybe a little bit, but it is also because brand matters, because a strong brand reflects in pricing. If you look at Pipedrive, that's a CRM as well. Maybe a slightly different segment than Salesforce, but their essential pricing is $12.90. And then you have Salesforce pricing. Their essential pricing is 25 euros. It's like, I'm not good in math, but almost double or more than double. So what do you think about that? And of course, like you could say really different segments, but both of them are the essential packages. And that's actually quite interesting. What do you think, Heikki?
Yeah, on point. Very good examples you raised there. Just wanted to emphasize that with the strong brand reputation, you can have not just like higher price points on your product, but also increase the valuation of your business itself. And I saw that very closely around 9 years ago when I was working at Paytrail's marketing, and Nets acquired Paytrail. And by the time we invested quite much for the brand development, and we conducted yearly surveys of that as well. And Nets told us that they didn't buy Paytrail only because of the customer portfolio, but also because of the well-known brand and very trusted company in Finland. And really, it was really, amazing to see that kind of results from the marketing team.
That is a really nice example, actually, and that is also maybe pointing to the fact why the brand is part of the CEO universe, because I guess valuation is pretty important to a CEO. This is also a study from Profitwell that reflects the same thing. So it looks at how the brand recognition drives the willingness to pay and the ability to sell. So on the x-axis, you have I hope I have the axis right, but on the x-axis, you have the brand perception, and on the y-axis, you have the willingness to pay in regards to the current price. And you see it does go up with the brand recognition. And it can be summed up that if you don't have a brand, you will compete on the price. And I think, I don't know about you who are listening to this, but this is maybe something relatable. And if you notice, for example, with your discussions in sales or in any parts of your company, that there's always a strong price discussion, maybe that's an indicator to raise your brand as well. And focus on that. And one example is also for, if you look at HubSpot. So you might have a small marketing automation provider, and they will, of course, compete with many similar solutions. But if you're HubSpot, it's like a whole different ballgame, because you somehow casually invented a category. I know it's not casually, it probably was a lot of work, but inbound is what you created. And people trust you to be knowledgeable about this and buy from you because they trust you, they recognize you. And what are your thoughts? I would be curious to know, Heikki, on category creation.
Yeah, now we are getting into a really interesting topic. Just want to kind of zoom out from the positioning and from the pricing to think about the whole kind of brand strategy. And there are like several sets of different strategies that you can choose, and you don't probably read this from the marketing books, but what I've identified and used over the years are that there are three different kind of strategies. First one is what I call the SpaceX strategy. You can hear Elon Musk announcing that we're going to go to the Mars and beyond or something, and so even though you don't have any idea how to get there, I bet Elon Musk nowadays has, but you don't have to have that, but still people will jump to that bandwagon, and this is very vision-led strategy. The second one is the Red Cross strategy. So their mission is to protect life and health, to ensure respect for the human being. And their message is so strong that people will like actually go to the streets as volunteers to gather money for the same joint mission. So that is the mission-led strategy. And the third one, or third option, that's my personal favorite, it's the HubSpot strategy. And it's all about building your own business category. And what they said around, 10, 15 years ago was that the world has now changed, and you need to change too, as marketers, as salespeople. And if you want to master this strategy, you need to create your own vocabulary of the whole industry. You have to repeat constantly your story, and you have to educate people as much as possible, because no one is at that time looking at keywords from Google that you are speaking about. So you have to educate people with the new sort of thinking. And all of these strategies, of course, it's a long game. It really takes some time. So my advice is that you take some of the ingredients from all of these strategies and make your own way. And this was exactly what we did at Lyyti. So we saw that the world had changed dramatically, partly because of the COVID, but that was very obvious, but also because of the previous development in the industry as well. And everyone was organizing event, not just kind of traditional event organizers, but now everyone was pitching in. So from us, it was very natural move to be the trailblazers and to help people to level up their marketing, event marketing skills, because everyone was organizing events, even though they didn't have any previous experience on doing so. So what we did was that we combined the agile practices into traditional event management, and we built the own methodology called event success management, and that was the beginning of journey to create the new business category. And now must say that announcing a new business category just in one blog post won't create it. So you have to remember that it really takes time, and you have to build it very actively in all your sales and marketing and customer support actions.
And this is also again why this whole thing must be part of the CEO universe, because if you set out in marketing, and this strong advice, don't do this marketing alone, that probably will not succeed, because just as you said, Heikki, it has to go through the entire business. Otherwise you have a website update, and that's a whole different thing than creating a category. Maybe a blog or content strategy even is not the same either. But also this category part is strongly related to another topic, and that is the positioning. So we mentioned before how crucial it is actually to position yourself for companies. You must be in the right position, and that is maybe also related to the category. I know Heikki has a quote he wants to say.
Yeah, I wanna quote Don Draper here, because it summarizes yet again very perfectly this. Don Draper said that if you don't like what's being said, change the conversation. So when your competitors are competing against each other in a same old field, just create your own field and be the master there.
That is also very true for cake pops, and that's maybe also, I like to tell the story about cake pops because it illustrates positioning really well. If you're cake pops, positioning wise, you could be like, yeah, it's cake. There's the name cake in it, right? So obviously it's cake. But then you are looking at cake, and if you would look at the Capterra for baked goods, or G2, this is not sponsored by any means, but if you would look at the category for cake, it would be like big piece, gooey, lots of dough, some sort of icing on it, chocolate is involved probably quite often, or cream. And then as a cake pop, you will just not live up to this comparison, and the expectation your customers might have at cake pop based on the frame of reference from cake are something you will never meet. This is why cake pops need to actively and consciously position themselves in the right category, because this is all about managing expectations and defining the frame of reference of your customers that are coming to you. They need to understand what they can expect from you and what they can't expect. Or in other words, which jobs to be done will you solve for your customers? So if someone wants a cake, the job to be done is probably like, I need a huge amount of sugar. I'm stressed. I need to somehow balance this out. But if you're a cake pop, your job to be done is maybe, oh, I just want a little bite of something sweet. And I mean, if you're in the wrong category, you'll compete with the sachertortes of the world. And that's a sad place to be in. And that's why you should definitely be a cake pop and not a sachertorte. and define your own space. And then similarly, on the same advisory road is also that features can be copied and a brand cannot. Well, of course, you can copy a recipe for cake and then you have a cake too. And I know this is probably heartbreaking for any of the more technical people that might be listening, but no matter how proprietary and whatnot your code is, the chances that it gets copied are pretty much there. I mean, you see those examples everywhere. And do you have, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just about to comment that you can even steal or copy the brand visual identity. I have a funny story about that. I think quite many people can relate to that as well. When I tried out Zoom for the first time, like software we're now using, I honestly thought that it was Skype with the new sort of name. So later on, I realized that they were kind of competitor of Skype, and I remember that Skype made some sort of meme or announcement that they are not same as Zoom. They are a different system with the and Skype is still up and running, I guess. But something that if you believe that brand is only about brand identity, then that could be one kind of problem that people might identify you in a different company. But what I've seen in the marketing field is that some marketers are really afraid of talking about their plans. So they want to like keep their biggest marketing secrets there and create the big launch someday. And the problem is that when they launch something, if you don't have the audience, you don't have the listeners. So nobody will actually care about you because you haven't been able to create the demand first. And my advice here is that when you start marketing, start with your audience and favor sort of soft launches, so that speak as early as possible about all the plans that you have. Of course, you don't reveal anything like something that is really secret, but start with like rolling the snowball from the beginning, and that is how you create and engage the audience. And when you actually bring something big for that audience, then you will already meet the demand.
Yeah, I was going to comment that marketing is, of course, all about doing stuff in secret so that nobody knows about it. But then I also thought that oftentimes the reason why this doesn't happen is that there's a fear of competition. I remember when we had in previous jobs demo webinars, everyone was like, we can't allow competitors, or we shouldn't maybe demo the product because then people see it. And that is like also a sign that maybe you are too dependent on your features and you forgot your brand somewhere along the way. But what is brand marketing actually? We talked a lot about it already, but if you look at this slide, I think that kind of illustrates the role of brand marketing. The company and what you think about, or what the company thinks about itself is here. And then there's what the customers think of the company. And then this like part in the middle that is overlapping, this is what you use brand marketing to kind of consolidate the two and bring them closer together. Sometimes also there might be an aspirational, or often there's an aspiration where you want to be, and you need to make sure that your customers understand it and go along with you, and that it's also the right thing for them again. And this is why it's the job of brand marketing to tell the story, which is shaped and envisioned by founders, CEOs, C-level. Obviously not alone typically, but in that realm. And in the old days, it's like, I remember when I started working, it was a lot about PR and it was a lot about advertising. And in that sense, it was print advertising actually at that time still. And now you have so much more tools at hand in marketing to actually tell the story. And you're not dependent on the graces of some media to cover you. And this is where content also plays a key role for the brand, that this is the way you continuously shape out your brand and tell your story. And we mentioned this in the beginning as well, like it's part of the entire funnel if you work with growth marketing or in general, the pirate funnel is I think quite commonly referred to these days, but often in terms of like not necessarily brand, but brand plays a role in all of these stages. So you need to know, people need to know that you exist. You need to somehow have the right messaging that helps you with acquiring them as customers, for example. You need to act as users, then you need to activate them to use your product, and that activation needs to follow the brand promise. You need to make sure they stay. There's actually another ProfitWell study also that says, or looked at how brand recognition increases retention. And of course, then if you have a product that works, if you have a product that's aligned with your customer needs, there is this willingness to pay that goes up, which affects revenue. And then referral, you don't maybe want to refer a product that doesn't have such a strong brand, or where somehow something is misaligned, or that doesn't have this recognition. Yeah. Any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think, this just love the pirate funnel here, but also to emphasize that it's important that brand is not just the foundation that you create first as a project, and then you start doing and conveying that message with the marketing operations. Because in a long run, that might end up in a situation when you have a lot of sort of marketing and design depth, which means that you need to have another project to refresh your brand. So my advice here is that brand equals the marketing operations. So it should be really, really well implemented in your daily operation. It's not just templates and a side project or sort of a layer for your work.
Very well said. And this is maybe also what we see on this slide here.
Exactly. I definitely love this matrix. And the other way to see this is also, if we are now looking at the violet boxes over there, so that there are demand creation and meeting the demand over there. And the key learning in this matrix is that if you focus only on the tactical side, you cannot reach the long-term strategic goals. And in the other hand, if you are creating strategic content, you cannot expect the short-term results right away. So when I do marketing, I every time reflect this matrix, and it's very, very valuable exercise to map all the actions and what are the expectations towards those marketing initiatives.
And to communicate this internally, because typically there are stakeholders who need to understand that too. That's also super important. And I would also recommend mapping your actions on something like this, because it makes it really clear for everyone involved. Some practical tips maybe also on this one, but what we always suggest, or what we also do with our customers, one is probably the first thing we do is we look at G2 and Capterra. Which category is it in? What other players are there? How does that match up? Is it the right category? And then obviously we talk to their ideal customers, and I can't stress enough how important that is to talk to customers. But then also you can do this exercise of, and that's a fun one to do with colleagues maybe, who don't see the importance of brand. Take your value propositions, put it on a slide with your competitors, remove all the logos, and then ask, like, do you recognize ours? I've done that several times, and the hit rate of recognition is not so high. That's a positive way to put it. Yeah, and then also you have to look at what value do you bring to your customer, and what do your customers value about you? What are your similarities and differentiators from your competition? And then also maybe a fun thing you can do in your company to ask if your brand would walk into a bar, of course with a passport for Corona and everything, but if your brand would walk into a bar, who would it be? It's also maybe a fun way to look at your brand. Any thoughts from you on that, Heikki? Have you done any of those?
Yeah, many of those, and I can always like see the salespeople's eyes when they are in the same workshop, and we are starting to sort of making these pure marketing exercises. So they are not every time that engage from those, but I really believe that they are very valuable, like all these exercises. And what I normally do when sort of redesigning the brand or doing some brand development is that I take a couple of key competitors. I don't know, from G2 or Capter, or where maybe you find them, or what are your sort of competitor analysis there. And I create bunch of spectrums and try to map what kind of brands they are. And here are a couple of examples. They could be either playful or serious or something in between. That's the idea of the spectrum. They could be colorful or monochromatic, human, corporate, or something like that. And then make your desired brand. So if your competitors are serious, consider if you want to be playful. And the idea here is that the more different you are, the better you stand out from the field. But you can also remember that you don't want to be that radical in every aspect. You don't have to be. Like it's important that your audience still familiarize yourself in that business. So now I'm yet again reflecting times at the pay trail. The company was called Suomen verkkomaksut, Finnish e-payment by the time, and we rebranded ourselves as Paytrail. And that was on purpose because we wanted to be categorized next to Paywall, which was the big brother of the whole industry. And that was there comes the familiarity. But then when everyone else were blue or green on a color scheme, we went pink. So that is the completely other side of the spectrum. So make these exercises as well to map out, like, how do you actually differentiate from yourself from the competitors.
And that's like the key thing, and this is why maybe it's something that comes also, like, not everyone can do brand, because it's being able to walk this balance between, being radical, being still connected to everything and reality, and kind of uniting those two things. How far is too far? To know that is actually not so easy, and that I think is something to really figure out with different exercises like that. And talking also about reshaping the brand, maybe this is a bit of a more concrete example from your past at Lyti, but you've done quite some work there. Do you want to maybe briefly, first of all, tell us what Lyti is, in case not everyone knows?
Sure. So Lyti is, as its core, it's the event management software. But as I told you earlier, we wanted to kind of recreate it ourselves and create a new category called event success management. And these days, Lyti calls themselves as event success platform. Founded 2007, being the market leader in Finland ever since, plus 70 employees, etc. Well-known company, now operating in several countries as well. This is how we looked from the website when I joined Lyti, and it was working. nothing to complain in Finland, but when you when you want to go global and operate in another country, especially in Sweden, you have to show that you're really there, and the quality requirements in Sweden are so much higher. And this is actually a funny thing, because our CEO said when I joined Duty that please don't rebrand ourselves and please don't revamp the websites. They are all fine. And this was one of the first things that I started doing. And a year later, we had a new brand and new website, along with other things as well. But then we've been laughing at it, because it was very obvious that the results that we got from those projects was amazing.
This is just also to highlight, even as a growth marketing agency, the Wayback Machine finds some fun nuggets in the interwebs. So this is maybe also not how you conquer the world. But what have you?
Actually, that's something that you probably don't know, but I made these websites.
Oh no, yeah. This is a disclaimer. Heikki worked at Advanced B2B, where I am now, but before I came, so.
Yeah, around 6 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that, but.
No. It's fine. I agree with you.
Yes. I like the green and red colors.
They didn't match.
Yeah. But here, back to Lyti. Maybe if you want to briefly go through what has been done.
Yeah, let's just look what's there. Oh yes, so basically we updated the brand business strategy, and it was by the time when COVID was already hit. So we wanted to come out from the pandemic strong European-minded company. So we updated the business strategy. We created 56 pages brand book to kind of cementize all the things that we defined there. We refreshed our visual identity, created huge website from scratch on HubSpot platform, and we ramped up some marketing campaigns on operations in different markets that we were operating. We launched a new product called the Experience Value Score, which is how you measure the impact of an event, and that became the core of the event success management and the tool how to sort of develop your events and gather data from it. And then we updated product plans, pricing, and we hired the best ever SaaS marketing agency called Advanced B2B. We started our collaboration at the beginning of this year, and we've been very happy ever since. And then on this fall, we launched the Event Success Management certification. And now the first ever Event Success Manager is about to hire in Lyti. So quite many things when I now look back and see all the list there, and like eight of those happened in just one fall.
In a busy fall.
Yeah, it was.
How was it with Lyti? So you had a really strong brand in Finland, right? But because we talked a lot about brand and the importance of brand, but if you have a strong brand, say in Finland or any other market, but does it help you conquer new markets?
No, not at all. No. Not at all. So what I normally see also is that when you, for example, you start doing inbound marketing, you write a bunch of ebooks and you implement the marketing automation and you do all that. You realize how easy it is to generate leads from the markets that you are already operating. But what people don't see is that you've already done that brand work. You already have a good brand reputation. But when you go abroad, people don't have any idea who you are, and are you the company that they are gonna trust their business in. So there's always a challenge, and so my key learning here is that in order to create immediate sales results from the marketing outside your core market area, you really have to pay attention for the brand work, and it takes time. This is probably one of my biggest learning in the past couple of years in the industry.
Yeah, and that's again why that slide we showed strategic, long-term, and short-term tactics. You have to build up on this one. And this is actually also the question, like, how can you combine those short-term growth marketing tactics, in a sense, with long-term branding in an effective way? And in the interest of time, I'll go through it quite quick, but this is also almost the end of this webinar. But this is an example that some of you may have seen, this ad for our webinar, which we're in right now. And of course, like, the visual is our brands at Advanced B2B, our colors, all of that. But then the text is maybe a bit out there. And I think that's a good way to also test, like, what kind of messages resonate with your audience. And this one, the text is knock, knock, who's there? Brand? Brand who? Exactly. So it's a bit of a or as a cultural reference, maybe, in a sense, with the knock knock joke, but it also plays on the fact that brand is often forgotten. And that resonated, because I've never seen a sponsored post on LinkedIn with that many engagements, like likes. We optimized for leads, like for signups. It's a lead gen ad, and we got a lot of those too. I had a good cost per lead and everything. But what surprised me was that there were, like, I think over 70 or over 80 people clicked like on that. And that shows me that, okay, this type of messaging works for us to tell our story at Advanced B2B. Our people, like our ideal customers, react to this kind of messages. And this is something we can use for our brand as well. And now we will get to the Q&A. I'll stop the screen share for a second. People are still there. Let me see. There is one question here from Anna. Do you think the brand importance is the same in the case of consulting company, like for us at Advanced B2B, and for SaaS companies? Yeah, I do think so, because the way it affects, like, we need to sell our services, and a B2B SaaS product needs to sell their solution. And none of that works. Like, you can ask our colleagues in sales, it's really hard if there's no brand recognition to even open the door to sell something. Yeah. Is there anyone else who has a question? I'm checking, there's this Q&A box here. There is also a question. How did you communicate the Lyti brand rebranding with customers?
When we launched the website, we also launched the new products and also the product plans, etc. So we wanted to combine them in the same period of time, because, you know, if you just redo your website, that doesn't attract people that much. But if you have a bunch of different things that you launch at the same time, we sort of, that they leverage each other. So that was sort of the hard launch that we did for the customers. We use a lot of email marketing for the engaged inbound and customer contact database, a little bit advertising, basically all channels that we normally use when communicating the brand launch. So that was, I think, when we launched those things, the stake there was the experience value score and the productization and the website and all that came kind of as the side.
Yeah, there's more questions here, and this is one of my favorite topics. There are several questions asking, like, why is it so hard to measure the impact of brand, and how do you measure brand awareness in SaaS industry? I think measuring impact is something that we have somehow allowed ourselves to be led down a path of attribution that is provided to us by the tools that create those interactions or engagements. And what I mean is that, for example, if you use HubSpot, it shows you the original source. Like, it shows you the attribution that is like telling you the ROI of the platform. Same with advertising. And I think that makes us really focused on stuff like source and channel. But how you measure the impact of brand is your revenue. I think you can do a brand awareness study as well, but in the end, the buck, quite verbally, does stop with the revenue, because as we also said, like, if you have a good brand recognition, you sell easier. You don't need to haggle on the price, and you understand who your ideal customers are, and they have a good experience with your product, and all of that results in revenue, and all of that is brand. This is also a question from someone here in the chats, Sari, that is actually our CEO. How would you measure ROI for brand marketing if you need to sell the idea to your CEO? Same way, I would say brand is revenue. And if your revenue goes down, don't try to ramp up the lead production, build your brand. Maybe also a good way to do this is to get a CEO who understands the importance of brand. I don't know if that works like this. Then there's another question here. There's lots of questions. Do you think it makes sense to work on brand before product market fit, or only after it? That's a good question. I would say brand should be part of your business journey from the very beginning. But of course, when you don't have product market fit, you do not know who your ideal customers are yet. So your brand might be still evolving, but a brand is not something you like dig out of a box and say is a brand. Brand evolves, and it evolves along your product market fit as well then. So I would start before, but be able and mentally also ready to adjust.
To add that, from the content point of view, always try to seek for the right content customer fit, which is the kind of marketing perspective of the same product market fit thing. Just a comment.
Then there's another comment that came in here. Would a share of search be a good metric for measuring brand marketing success? Yes, when I said revenue, that of course is one metric. Typically, you can look at also some, I usually call it early indicators or leading metrics. Share of search, brand name searches, direct traffic. Those things can give you a sort of idea about your brand marketing success. It's not like black and white that says, okay, if it goes up, it goes up. But there's a strong correlation. Yes. And then my company is strongly focusing on selected target accounts, so ABM. Would it be unclever to pause efforts in general brand recognition activities? Yes, I would not do this. I would definitely, like, the general brand recognition is also seen by your target accounts. But of course, it depends maybe also how many target accounts you have, but I would assume it's a wider list. So these are your ideal customers, and these you need to use to shape out your brand. I suppose they are your ideal customers. That depends also how you've chosen them. It's a whole different discussion. But by and large, I think brand plays a role also in ABM. I don't know if you want to add on to that one.
I definitely agree with you.
Yes. All right. So we are slightly over time, or maybe I booked it for an hour. I'm not sure, but there is no more questions. If you have any questions afterwards, like, feel free to reach out to us. like you find us on the website, on LinkedIn, Instagram. If you search, you can too, try to message us. And yeah, otherwise we'll send you the recording likely tomorrow. And thank you all for joining, for your questions, and have a very lovely rest of the day. And thank you, Heikki.
Thank you. Bye-bye.